Hey guys, HardlyBriefDan here with episode 41 of our Unity Make an RPG series, and today I'm going to go over a few things that we started doing on the live stream, and then kind of work from that, and then talk about what the next few videos after, or what I'm going to be doing with the next couple of videos, or basically what we're going to do after turn-based combat. So during the live stream, basically I talked to a few of you, try to answer some of your questions, and we kind of started working on the combat system. We didn't get too far or anything, so no worries there. But basically, after we do the turn-based combat system, I'm going to go into start making some videos on inventory systems, on a inventory system, on how I handle inventories. So basically, if you guys can leave in the comments below or on Twitter or on Facebook, message me or tweet at me or whatever, what kind of inventory system that you're trying to use in your game or that you'd like to see implemented. Basically, what I'm going to do for an inventory is do an item-based or item picture-based one. So it's going to store items in grids. We can make it a list. It can be buttons. It doesn't have to be like just like slots. But it can be like a whole list. I think Skyrim uses a list. It can be something like that, or it can be slots with images. Really, just kind of leave down in the comments what you'd like to see, and I'll show you how I would implement an inventory into a game. To do that, what I might do with this is kind of create a separate project and just say, kind of going back to what I originally wanted to do was do Unity RPG systems that you could use. So what I might do is go ahead and just drag a few things from this into a new project and just show you, okay, this is what I do the inventory. This is how it all would work together with these few like classes. So like an item class and stuff. Those would all be situated into a separate, basically almost like a prefab that you guys could use, and you can see me code and whatnot. And it would work. It will work in this project, but I'm just going to probably move it into another project just to keep it really bare bones and simple. Anyways, that's the idea. I'm going to start going over and show you kind of what we did on the live stream, and then continue a little bit from where we left off. So basically, a lot of the live stream, I had to clean up a lot of stuff, a lot of stats and stuff that I had not changed. And basically, a lot of that comes from the game information script and our base player script. So the game information script, if you remember, is a script with a whole bunch of static variables. And this is to explain how I use this. I kind of explained this on the live stream a bit, and maybe this is the wrong way to do this, but this is the way I do it in some of my projects, and it seems to work fine. But basically, when you load the game, I create this object or this script, which in this case is a game information, and we're storing it on an object, but you don't even have to do that. You can just have a script with static variables in it. And what I do is I store all the data in that script. If you want a seamless world, then you go ahead and attach it to an object and never destroy the object, and it stays with you the whole time. And basically, it allows me to only look at I don't have to continue to load from our player prefs or load from whatever save file you decide to create. All the information is stored on the character, and at the end of the day, or whenever you save at a save point, or when you exit the game, all the information from that class can be immediately saved off into player prefs or some database or however you save your information. So the idea with game information is to use that as basically a real, attach it to the character, if you will, and you can always pull your information, so you can load once. And again, maybe that's not the best way to do it, but I know that works for me, and hopefully it will work for you guys. So I went ahead, and in that script, I'll go ahead and open it up real quick. Basically, in that script, I went ahead and I just added more getters and setters, public static getters and setters for stamina, endurance, all of our new skills. And that's all I did there. And then I went ahead and, let's see. We started working on our turn-based stuff. I did adjust the base player a bit. I changed the stats to our new stats that I created, the Luck, Mastery, Charisma, and Overpower stats. Those are all added. So I'll go ahead and show that up on the stream, on the video. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you guys. Sorry about that. But here you go. This is the new. I've added these, so you can go ahead and double check your game information script, see if it has that or has your variables. Our base player here, I've added. the stats, and let's see. I went ahead and I added in our base character class. I've added an enum, a new one called character classes, and these are the character classes. And basically, I did this so that you don't have to look at the name. You can just look at the enum. Maybe for some reason you don't want to look at the string, but you can look at the archer class type. That's one way to do it. So I added that, and then we actually started looking at our turn-based system, and I'll go ahead and open that up. Remember, it's a turn-based combat state machine. And what we did is we kind of decided, or we talked briefly about kind of how we're going to handle the turn-based system. And I have mentioned a few times I wanted to keep it pretty simple, so it's not super complex, but it's easily adaptable, and you guys can add on to it and grow from there. So I'm going to keep it a basic style of no positioning, but basically you're going to be able to choose from you can choose moves, and those moves are going to apply a certain amount of damage. They might have a status effect added to them, and it's going to apply that damage, and those status effects will do something, and then it'll be the enemy's turn. And it's going to go back and forth until you either die or you win. So that's the idea for that. Part of player choice, which is your move, will be an ability, which we have yet to create, which we will be creating. I'll show you how I handle spells and abilities. And it could also be using items. So let's say you have a potion that increases, I don't know, stamina. Well, we can include that in your player choice. That's when the player decides to do that. The next thing is enemy choice. And enemy choice basically comes down to AI scripting and how to create AI for various games. And I think for the start of this, or for now, we're going to create a simple AI where it just chooses maybe randomly or maybe based on its health what it's going to try to do. And then from there, it'll just perform the ability. So the enemy won't be too intelligent, but it's going to make its own choices. And that's what I want to do for that. And then here we have, so coming back to our state machine here, we've added a calculate damage state and a add status effect state. So basically the idea is we're going to start our battle, and it's going to be either enemy choice or player choice, and then once they make their choice, it's going to calculate the damage, and it's going to either add a status effect, and then, well, okay, so you're going to do the move, it's going to try to add a status effect, if there is one on that move. If there is no one, then it just goes straight to calculate damage. And then if it does add a status effect, then it's going to add the status effect damage to a calculate damage, and then we'll calculate the damage and output that to either the enemy or player, depending on who just went. So what we did is we started on our battle state start. So this is where we're going to create the enemy, set up the battle, and then choose who's going to go first. And we decided that, or I decided that the first person who's going to go is going to be based on our luck stat. So because we don't have a speed stat really, and I didn't include one because I didn't really think about it at the time, we're going to go based on luck. You don't have to do that. You can come up with a different way to start. It's up to you. So what I did is I created a new script, a new C# script, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that. And this is how I recommend doing it, but you don't have to. But basically, I went ahead and created a battle state start script. It's a new C# script, and I called it battle state start. I'll go ahead and open that up in Model Develop, and you can go ahead and see it. So first off, the idea of this class is so that you can call it anywhere, or well, you can call it in our state machine. And I basically went up here. And after I created the script, I went ahead and made a new private instance of this script, right? So that we can call it in our battle state, in our actual battle state start state. It's a lot to say. But basically, it's a private variable. It's of type battle state start. I call it battle state start script. And again, I set it to a new instance of it. And so what that's going to do is when we start the battle, we can go ahead and run all of our functions in here. So we're not going to clutter our state machine with a whole bunch of nonsense, right? It's going to be super simple to the point, or like our state machine will be super simple to the point. It's going to say we're going to be doing this, and then we're going to create the enemy, and then we're going to see who goes first, right? and then from there we'll choose our state. But all that logic and stuff is going to be in this script. That's just the way I like to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but I'll show you. We've done this. We've used this before. So basically, go ahead and copy that battle state player script. Go ahead and write this first off if you're going on, continuing on. So we have this private variable here. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to jump down and under our create enemy comment here, I'm going to go ahead and paste that, and I'm going to go dot, and we should be able to see a prepare battle function, right? So in this prepare battle function, this is where this is like the only function we're gonna call, and then we're gonna run all the stuff in here, right? So in prepare battle, which is, I'm in the battle state start script, and I'll make sure I'll go over all these for you guys in just a second. I made a public function called prepare battle. It returns nothing, so it returns a void. And this is where we're going to say, okay, well, we're going to call this private function create new enemy, and then we're going to go say, after we create our enemy, we're going to say, well, we're going to compare each other's luck, and then choose who goes first. So, hopefully you like those ideas, by the way. If you don't, or if you have other suggestions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. But I'll probably just kind of keep going with this idea since we're already moving on, or moving along. If you have specific questions for your projects, you can leave a comment or message me on YouTube or tweet at me or leave it on Facebook or whatever. I'll try to answer it the best I can, but I don't know everything at all. So maybe my implementation will work for you or my idea will help you out, but we'll go on. We'll move on from there. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create an enemy. And there's a couple of things you can do to go ahead and create an enemy. I decided to use our base player script or base player class, and I'm going to go ahead and we still have that open, and basically that includes a player name, a level, a class type, stamina, endurance, strength, all of our stats, a gold amount, XP, and stat points to allocate. And actually, this isn't the best way to do it because our enemy doesn't need all this information, and depending if we add more to our base player, we're probably not going to need it all. But I didn't want to actually do all that, write it out all on the live stream. So maybe, and in the video, since you guys see me type up all these stuff before, so maybe I'll do that kind of behind the scenes. I'll create a base enemy class here, but it's basically going to have the same thing. It's going to have enemy name, an enemy level, an enemy class, and then stats. But anyways, for now, in the battle state start script, go ahead and create a private variable. It's of type base player, and I'm calling it new enemy, and then I go new base player, right? So this is basically giving new enemy all the stats and stuff, starting stats of a normal base player. So the next thing we do in our create new enemy script or function here, method, I said new enemy dot player name. So we're going to create the name, and I just called it deadly enemy. There's a couple things you could do here. Let's say you have a whole bunch of names that you want to do. You can go ahead and do like a private string array and say enemy names. We'll go ahead and do this, and we're going to set that equal to a new string array, and we'll give it some names. We'll go ahead and do deadly enemy like I have down there. I'm actually going to go ahead and copy that. We can go ahead and do a comma. I'm just going to paste a few so that we have something to play around with. So we can do deadly enemy. We can just say fierce enemy, subtle enemy. I don't know. What's another one? Powerful. I don't know. That works. You don't have to do that. You can come up with name mobs if you wanted to. I would suggest basically using the same. This is to create random enemies, if I didn't explain myself, and I don't think I mentioned that. This whole setup right now, we're creating random enemies. If you don't want to create a random enemy and you want to create a named enemy, what I would do is make a database, much like our item database, that is basically a blank enemy, right? And you go ahead and put a name in there. So say you want like Lord Magaroth, or I don't know, something like that, right? And it would have a name, it would give it a level, and you can give it a class, give it all the stats. You can change all that if you want. But basically, that's kind of like the idea behind a named enemy. This is to create random enemies. And maybe you're not trying to do that, but basically this is, I think, a good way of creating. I think it's a good idea to create random stuff, especially if you're working by yourself, because it looks like you have more content. But anyways, we can look at creating names mobs later if you still have questions on it. But again, if you're going to create named enemies, I would definitely go the approach of creating a database, like an XML file full of them. So here we go. We've created this new string array of enemy names, and down here, instead of applying the name, we're going to go ahead and do a enemy names, and we're going to grab a random index. So we're going to go random.range of our index values, and our index values in this case are going to go from 0 to we'll go ahead and do enemy names dot length plus 1. So this is going to count. This is going to go from 0, which array started 0, to the enemy length plus 1, so it'll go count to 4. So this is going to randomly choose a name for us out of the 4 that we gave it. The next thing we have is a player level, and it's basically new enemy.player level, and we're selecting a random range again, and I'm basing this off of our player level, and I'm saying if it's less than 2 or plus 2 of our player level. So let's say if our player is level 50, it would be 52 to 48, right? That's the range. Again, you can change that. You don't need to do that. You can give it, whatever the player's level is. You can say that's our enemy level. But I wanted to create some variation, and that's why I did that. Game information, remember, is the script that I talked about earlier. It's a class that has a whole bunch of static information in it that we load into. So the next thing you see here is a player class, and the player class is assigning the enemy a class type. If you're doing that randomly, this is a way to do it. If you're creating named mobs, remember in the database you'd have a player class spot or enemy class, however you want to set that up, and you can go ahead and set it there. But what this does is I've actually went ahead and created a class types array. So if you see up here, I have a private base character class, and it's an array, and it's called class types, and set it's equal to a new array. And then I went ahead and set the different types classes. I have 4. You might have 100. I'm not sure, but I went ahead and said new mage, base class, archer, warrior, rogue, and I'm using the same random.range to just randomly pick a index value for that array and set the class to it. So basically what we're doing here is we're saying our player class, randomly choose either mage, archer, warrior, or rogue, and make that equal to the enemy's class. The next thing, and this is where we start doing some stat calculations. I think it's a little fun, and we can actually go ahead and delete these floats here because we don't need them. But what we're doing with stat calculations is I asked the live stream kind of like if they had an idea, and we're just going to use a percent-based modifier for stamina, endurance, intellect, and strength. And we'll probably use a percent-based for the other 4 as well. And what I mean by percent-based is depending on your level, it will be depending on your level, we're going to calculate a certain percentage of that and add it to your stat add it to the stat. So you're add to the base stat. So if your base stat is 10 and we want 20% of that, it'd be 2 times your level. So it'd be 2 times, let's say you're level 5, you'd get 10 added, so your total stamina without gear, mind you, will be 20. And that's just one way to do it. So what we'll go ahead and do, or what you can do, this is for the enemies. This doesn't have to be like our stat calculations, because we're not assigning gear to the enemies right now. So maybe we need to increase the enemy modifier, and actually we'll probably do that today. But you're wondering, you're like, where am I doing the math? Well, I created this stat calculations script, and I actually call it up here, this private stat calculations, call it stat calculations, and I set a new instance of it. I'm going to actually go ahead and add script to this, so I know it's a script later on. I'm going to go ahead and change this like that. I'm going to go ahead, it's a C# script. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and monodevelop. As you see, it's a public class, stat calculations. It does not inherit anything, so it doesn't inherit from mono behavior. And I got rid of update and the start function. And basically, I went ahead and made some modifiers. And I am going to change these to enemy stamina modifier. I'm going to go ahead and add this enemy term to all these because I didn't think about this yesterday on the live stream, but like I said, we're not going to have gear, right? So or the enemies won't have gear. Our players will, and so our players might have a ton of gear that gives them a ton of stats. So our modifiers need to be higher for our enemy. At least that's kind of my thinking. So what we'll go ahead and do is change these modifiers, and these are based on percentage. Again, so this is 15, 15, 15 and 15% and 1%, or 10% and 10%. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 25%, and then I'm going to change these to 20. And so what we're doing here is I created an enumeration called stat type, and we're saying that this needs to be passed into this calculate stat function. And what this does is it's going to return a stat value based on the stat you send it. So it's a public function. It returns a type integer, so an int. I call it calculate stat, and basically it needs an integer of a stat value. So it needs basically a base stat value in this case. It needs a stat type, which is stamina, endurance, intellect, or strength, which we have 4 more. I'm going to go ahead and add them today. And then we have an int, which is our player level. And the math is the same. It's basically we're going to change our modifier based on we're going to change the modifier this modifier here based on whatever our stat type is. So if our stat type is stamina, then our modifier will be different, and then it's going to go ahead and return that value. So what we're going to do is So what we're going to do is go ahead and add our other 4 stats. So we're going to go ahead and add overpower. We'll do mastery as one. We'll do luck. And we'll go ahead and do charisma. Couldn't think of the other one. We're going to go ahead and make some more modifiers up here. And I'm going to go ahead and actually change these comments because these are wrong and it's kind of bothering me. We are going to leave these new modifiers at 10% because I don't think they should be modified too much. And this is not strength, so this is going to be our let's see, overpower here. And then we're going to go ahead and do our mastery and luck and then charisma. And I'm going to go ahead and make some more if statements. This is not the best way to do it. I'm having a brain fart right now. So if you guys can let me know, give me a little reminder. I'll probably remember after I record of a better way to do this. This is terrible, but it's okay for now. It'll get the job done. We're not trying to do super efficient code right now. So anyways, now we got to go ahead and change our modifiers to our overpower one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's see, where are we at? Overpower. I'm going to go ahead and grab our mastery. There we go. Alright, so now we have our stats. We're calculating it based on I think I know a way that I think I'm gonna change this up right now. So we're gonna go ahead and add a function here. We're gonna go ahead do a private void, and we're gonna do a set. We're gonna call it set modifier. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and copy all this, and I'm gonna get rid of all these returns. because I don't like how I'm using all this code like 100 times. I think it looks absolutely ridiculous. So we're gonna go ahead and do this. We're gonna go ahead and delete all that and do this. We're gonna cut that. We're gonna make that a private variable, so it's gonna be a private float modifier. Actually, no, we're not. Go ahead and redo that. We want to paste that down here. So this calculates stat. Let's see, how do we want to do this? Modifier is going to come from here. This is going to return a float. No, we don't want to do that. Alright, we actually are going to make our modifier a private variable up here. We're going to call it stat modifier. Like that. Going to go ahead and move it. Okay. And so now when we call this set modifier, we're going to go set modifier method. Or we're going to call the method. So we're going to copy that, paste it here. We need to go ahead and change our stat modifier to here. This is going to receive a stat type called stat type, which is this one here. And so we're going to have to go ahead and send it. Alright, this looks a loads better. Okay, so what I'm gonna go ahead and explain what I did. So basically I got rid of all those returns, and we're creating a function here that we're calling a set modifier. So we're gonna go ahead and send it our stat type, and from our stat type we're gonna choose whatever modifier we're the enemy modifier. Actually, we're gonna call the set enemy modifier. Because this is for enemies, and we're gonna go ahead and make another variable here, and we're gonna say bool is enemy, and we're gonna check first, because if it's not an enemy, so we're gonna go if is enemy, because we can use these stat calculations, in other spots. So we're gonna go if is enemy. We're gonna go ahead and then call these functions. If we're not, then we're not gonna go ahead and do this. We're going to do it differently. Yep. But for now, we're not going to worry about that, because we're just going to be doing the enemy. So we're going to go ahead and send this in our. So what I've done is I've added a new bool called isEnemy. I've gotten rid of all these returns, so we only have one return statement up here. We created a new method called setEnemyModifier. It takes a stat type, which comes from this enumeration up here. And it's basically saying, if the stat type is stamina, then set it to this modifier. If it's overpower, set to this modifier. Now, you might be asking, I have these same numbers, and the reason why I left it like this separately is because if you want a different number, then you can go ahead and do that. So I could definitely simplify this, since I want my two stamina and endurance to have the same modifier. But just in case I don't want that later on, then I go ahead and change it without having to change more code. I can just change it up here. So now what we need to do is go ahead and back into our calculate our battle state start, and you see I call this function where I send it the stat that it needs. So it needs a stat, it needs a type, it needs a level, it needs a bool. You can see I send it the stat, so I'm sending it the base stamina, which if you remember is 12, and I know that because that comes from our enemy, or our base class, right? Every class starts with the same amount of base stamina, which is 12. So I'm sending the base stamina, or 12. I'm sending it, letting it know that it's a stamina stat type, and then I'm sending it our player level, which is chosen up here, and I'm going to go ahead and send it true. And true means it's an enemy, right? So I'm going to actually need to send that for the rest of these stats. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is create the last four for you guys to see. I'm going to go ahead and type it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do new enemy. We're going to go ahead and do overpower first and set that equal to stat calculations script dot calculate stat. And remember that takes new enemy dot overpower. and then it's going to stat calculation stat type overpower, new enemy, dot player level, and then true. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again, show you guys. New enemy dot, we'll do mastery, set that equal to stat calculation script dot calculate stat, and then we'll go new enemy dot mastery stat calculations. We're going to send it the mastery stat, and then we'll go new enemy. Why isn't it seeing it? I'm going to go ahead and just copy this because it's IntelliSense isn't finding it. Bam. I'm now going to go, since I've typed 2 out, you guys kind of see how it's all connected. I'm going to go ahead and paste 2 more so we can get luck done. We also need to change mastery to charisma. Luck. Charisma. Luck. Charisma. Player level, true and true. Okay, so now we have stats, we have a name, we have a level, and we have a class. And that is a lot. You know, we're actually getting somewhere with our system. So to review for this video, we're creating an enemy, and then we're choosing, we haven't chosen first. So we're creating enemy, and we're doing this battle state start, prepare for battle, which basically calls this function, which we're going to go ahead and add now. So we're going to go ahead and call the create enemy, and we're going to go ahead and make a private function actually right now, where we're going to go private void choose first, let's see, choose who goes first. And we're actually going to go ahead and in our battle state machine, we're going to create a private or public static variable, and we're going to say, I'm not exactly, actually we don't need to do that. What we'll do, scratch that. We have a, we're going to make our battle state's current state. We're going to set that equal to a public static, so we can access it. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if our game information dot luck is greater than our enemy, in this case it's our new enemy. I don't know why it's not finding it. New enemy. So our new enemy dot luck, then who goes first? Well, we know if like I said, whoever has the most luck is going to go first. So if we have tons of luck, so our game information, which remembers us and our luck, is greater than the enemy luck, then we're going to say player goes first. And the way you do this is you go turn-based battle combat state machine, and you go current state is going to be equal to battle states. It's going to be turn-based combat state machine dot battle states dot player choice, like that. Now we have two other things. We have to do if. So if that's true, then we're going to do that. If our game information dot luck is less than new enemy. Oh goodness, why won't you find it? Is less than, then our enemy is going to go first. You might be wondering why I didn't just use an else here, and that's because we actually have one more state, and this is our last state, and it's if game information dot luck is equal to our new enemy dot luck. What happens when they're the same? And you know, creating randomness that's gonna happen. So we want to change that, and let's see, what do we want to happen when that happens? I think for now we're just gonna say if they're equal, we're gonna have the player go first, and to change, but I'm gonna go ahead. So I'm gonna comment. I'm gonna go ahead if greater than or equal to. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out, but I want to leave it here just in case you guys want an equal state. And that equal state could be anything. Let's say, think back to tabletop games. You do a roll check. You roll to see who has greater luck, okay? And you guys have the same amount of luck. Well, then maybe you could do another roll check and say, well, then we'll go down from luck to charisma and check charisma. You keep doing that, or you can just say greater than equal to, if the player is greater than or equal to the amount of enemy luck, then the player's going to go first. And that's what we'll do for this for now. Later on we get more complicated if we want. But so now we're in the case where the enemy wins, so we're going to go ahead and do turn-based combat state machine dot current state. Current state is going to be equal to turn-based combat state machine dot battle states dot enemy choice. And I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. We're about like 36 minutes right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy where the state machine is going to go. Hopefully you like the idea of the inventory stuff that we'll be doing after we finish the turn-based combat system. If you have any questions, you can message me or tweet me on Twitter. I have Facebook now. You can go ahead and like that page and message me on there or leave a comment. Please like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The support is amazing. I love you guys. You guys awesome with all the comments and likes and stuff. It's great to hear feedback. Keep that up, and I'll talk to you guys next time.